Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're joined by Pachamama, also known as Diego. He's our CEO and co-founder. Welcome, Diego.
Hi. Wow. Thank you, guys. It's actually Diego, also known as Pachamama, not the other way around. How are you guys? Thank you for joining.
Welcome, Diego. So, can you tell us a bit about your background and what led you to become involved in the world of crypto?
Yeah, sure. So I am from Argentina originally, but I spent the last 15 years in London, and about a year ago I moved to Portugal, where I'm now based. I Actually, I got introduced to crypto many years ago by another Argentinian gang that they were very bullish on Bitcoin, and they created a company that now is called Rootstock. That I believe that whoever it's a Bitcoin maxi, they should know them. And yeah, that's how I got introduced to crypto. And my background is I used to work for in banking, in traditional finance. I did investment banking for some time before moving to tech. I worked for a company that is called Just Eat, which is a food delivery technology company, which is a very big one, listed. And there I was part of the executive team in charge of building the last mile logistics function for them. So I was in charge of many teams in operations, sales, business development, and tech. And yeah, I spent a few years there before I quit. And with a friend of mine who was working at Amazon, we launched an e-commerce logistics platform that we actually named Bezos.ai, and that is based in the UK and several other countries. And yeah, I was working there as a co-CEO with him until last year when I decided to move to Portugal. In the meantime, after DeFi summer a few years ago, I really went into the crypto rabbit hole, and I really got excited about DeFi. And but I also, I enjoyed the good things, but I also suffered the bad things. So I got caught up in in a lot of exploits, scams. I also lost money in Terra. So yeah, I actually earned my stripes by playing in DeFi, right? And that's why I decided to create this platform, because I suffered the challenges that I'm trying to solve. So that's a little bit about my background.
And can you tell us a bit about Rumi Finance? What is it and the problems it solves?
Yeah, sure. So in a nutshell, like if I have like the problems in DeFi, as you guys might know, are several, but for me the most important ones have to do with how complex it is to navigate in DeFi. And when you talk about complexity, you can talk about the lack of transparency. Even though everything is public in the blockchain, it's very difficult to find the right data. Historic data is a mess. People put things like APY or APR, without definition. There's no standardization. When I started, I didn't know what impermanent loss was. You actually don't really understand the risks involved in operating the protocols. So that's about like how complex it is. Also, it's very time consuming. Like when you think about all these multiple blockchains that are popping up all the time, and so many protocols are being born every day. So the investment opportunities are massive, but in order to capitalize, you need to spend either, you need to be plugged into Twitter, crypto Twitter, or using all these protocols. But then it gets really, really complicated when you start combining these primitives, which is great about blockchain, like the composability feature of it, but it is very complex and time consuming. So that's the first kind of challenge that I see. The second one is around what I call sustainable yield. People call real yields. Right now, this narrative, I think that um, it is also complicated. Like you shouldn't be chasing token rewards from one protocol to the other. I know you can make money by being a mercenary in this sense, but there is a need, I think, or there is a problem into finding what I call sustainable and scalable long-term yield. And coupled with that, I think it is important to recognize that different people have different risk profiles, and that the market conditions change. So you're going to be able to find a sustainable yield, choosing the asset you want to have exposure to and the type of risk you want to incur. So I think it is difficult to find that nowadays in DeFi. And the last one, it's around the lack of risk management tooling and automation. As I said before, like you need a lot of time in order to compose strategies. Something that happened to me post-era is that I was looping using Abracadabra, which is a protocol from the Frog Nation that I used to use quite a lot. And suddenly I realized that, ETH went down significantly and I didn't have alerts. I didn't have an automatic way of getting out of the strategy. So in order to untangle the strategies, it would take me a long time. It actually made me lose a lot of money. So I would say that the last challenge that I see in crypto and we're trying to solve is the risk management and automation. So basically, what we now going to Rumi is like, in a nutshell, we want to abstract complexity. We want to make it easy to invest. We want to make it automatically. We want people to invest and not having to manage and spend countless hours managing their investments. We want to do that for them. And last thing is about risk management. We want to be able to provide the right tools to monitor and to make the changes that are needed when things go wrong or start to go wrong. So in order to anticipate. So that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do.
And how is this translated? Is this a kind of vault platform where it's a one-click investment, or are there liquidity pools? Can you tell us more of the structure of the protocol?
Yeah. So basically, the protocol has, I would say, it has four sides of it. First, so we have a vault infrastructure. So we create smart contract vaults. Within the vaults that are permissionless, we put the strategies. In order to make a strategy, initially, like our quant team is making all the strategies, but in the future, we envision anyone that is qualified to create a strategy and use our tools in order to push it to the community. But we have a what we call a backtesting environment. The backtesting environment is split into two: is historic backtesting and an on-chain simulation environment. And what it allows us is to really test and battle test the strategies and taking different stress testing scenarios. We have a component on AI in that in the historic backtesting. So our quant team are able to really go deep into the strategies that we develop. We then, when that's finished, we put the strategies into our on-chain simulation. We basically fork the networks and we put the strategies there, and we kind of monitor what happens to the strategies when they how do they kind of interact with an on-chain simulation environment. So things like understanding what happens with the slippage, the integrations with the other protocols, so all that. happens in a fork network. And so all the strategies that you guys are going to see in our platform, they go through that rigorous process. So that's the one of the elements, the backtesting environment. The other one is actually the strategy. So we have we have integrations with different protocols. So we're going to be launching first on Arbitrum, and our staple liquidity providing provider protocol is Uniswap V3. We chose Uniswap V3 because we think first of all there's ample liquidity there. The real yields, like we don't rely with Uni V3 on reward tokens. There's a lot of volume and there's a lot of good APR if you know how to use the platform. As many of you know, Uniswap V3, it's you need to choose a range in order to provide liquidity. And in order to optimize that, you need to be able to predict certain ranges. And our algorithm allows us to predict those ranges and say, okay, let's say on ETH, the ETH price is going to move within these ranges. And if we make it as narrow as we can, we're going to be increasing the APR by X. So that's why we're choosing Uniswap. Ample liquidity. It is complex. Not everybody knows how to use it, and you need to be able to rebalance your positions in order to capture the right ranges. But having said that, we already have deployed contracts in other chains that we're going to be deploying later in the next few months. We already have Optimism, where we also use Uniswap V3. But also we have strategies on Avalanche and Phantom, and there we do integrate with other protocols like Pangolin, Trader Joe, Spooky Swap, and Spirit Swap. And the idea, I think, longer term is to be able to have many protocols integrated and be able to diversify the positions. One of the key innovations that we bring to the space is the ability to have a portfolio vault. And in one of these portfolio vaults, you may find, let's say, on Avalanche, 6 or 7 pools on the same type of category, let's say a delta neutral strategy, and that portfolio vault will have within that vault a strategy on Trader Joe, a few pools on Trader Joe, a few pools on Pangolin, and the more protocols we add, the more pairs we add to the strategies and to the portfolio vaults, the better use of the risk management tooling that we have, because you're going to be diversifying the risk by tapping into different pools, different protocols, and also you can make it more scalable. One of the problems that we find is that you can be very successful, but if you're just tapping on one pool, at some point you're going to have a big ownership on the underlying pool, and that's not a good thing. So we try to maintain our ownership below a certain threshold. So having multiple pools and multiple protocols integrated will help diversify the risk. So I just spoke about the backtesting environment. Now I spoke about the Rumi vaults, which contains all the strategy, the integrations that we have with different protocols. Then we have what we call Prime, which is our lending module. We decided that, I think that under collateralized lending is something that it's key for the future growth of DeFi. Prime brokerage, which is the same thing in traditional finance, is huge, and it's really used by a lot of financial institutions. I think that leverage is a bad word in crypto, but just because it's misused. I think if you know how to use leverage, it's a very useful tool, not only because you amplify your potential returns, but also that you can use that leverage for hedging mechanisms, which is what we do for our strategies. So in Prime lending module, basically people supply single asset. We have single asset vaults, so people will supply, let's say, ETH, USDC or USDT or Arbitrum. and they will be paid in interest-bearing tokens. The interest it's determined by an interest rate model that we're basing out of the Aave model. It's a triple slope model. So it's based on utilization, and the people putting money in those single asset vaults, obviously they incur in less risk because it's just a single asset. There's no impermanent loss, there's no leverage, but obviously the yield that you get is lower than what we get on our leverage strategies. So with Prime, the main difference there are two main differences between our lending model and others. Is like, number one is that the money that is taken from the lending model and used on our strategies, we as Rumi and whatever is defined on the smart contracts, we manage the strategies. The users cannot decide what leverage they want to take on the strategies. That is determined by our algorithm, our quant team, and that is made on purpose, because we think that the good use of leverage and leverage management is key, and you need automation and you need experts to manage it. So we think we can do it better than the individual traders, and that helps the general health of the ecosystem, because we know that we're not going to get liquidations, because we have automatic leverage alerts and kill switches and rebalances. So there's not going to be any liquidation. So that's Prime. Then we have two other things. One is our optimization tooling. This is something that we are building, and it's ever growing. But basically, what we allow is to make our strategies smart. I just spoke about the leverage management. This tool manages the leverage on the yield strategies. This is done automatically, so certain thresholds on the debt ratios. So basically, the yield strategies, each of them, they have a target optimal leverage that obviously the system wants to achieve on every rebalance. So the leverage management tool will make that happen automatically. Then we have liquidity range optimization tool, which, as I said before, in the V3 type of AMMs, they have a prediction range algorithm. So we know what is the best range on each of the pools that we need to go long in order to maximize, make it as narrow as we can without falling outside the range and not earning any APR. And then it does the rebalances automatically. And then we have also the impermanence loss hedging, which is a tool that is used for our delta strategies, and basically works by using the Prime lending module, the combination of debt that we use for that we borrow. It's done in a way that you can actually hedge the volatile asset, and through a rebalancing mechanism, you can oscillate between certain allowed thresholds of impermanent loss until you incur a rebalance to hedge the position again. So that's all done automatically. And the last one is, I mentioned it before, is portfolio vault optimizations. We have a portfolio of different strategies in one vault. So users that they don't want to invest in different strategies, they can actually access those different strategies just by investing in one. We have a portfolio optimizer that determines what is the highest Sharpe ratio allocation of each of the pools that are part of the portfolio. And this higher Sharpe ratio is better in terms of the risk-adjusted rewards. So, for example, in Arbitrum, we're going to have a vault that contains 3 pools. I believe they're all ETH and stablecoin. There are 2 ETH USDC and 1 ETH USDT. And what it does is, like, you put money in one, and you actually have exposure to the 3 of them using the allocation that is determined by our optimizer. And this gets you longer term, better risk-adjusted rewards. So those are the 4 tools. The 5th tool I would say is the optimization of the prime lending module. We have a instant liquidity mechanism. I think I mentioned this in last AMM. One of the problems of lending platforms is that when the utilization rate becomes really big, people that provide single asset lending, they cannot take their money out. That is freaking risky. So we understand that it's a problem, and we're trying to come up with a solution. We have a instant liquidity mechanism put in place. Number 1 is we take a spread between what we pay the lenders and what we charge the people that take the strategy, and that spread is put towards a wallet, a vault that we call the first guard reserve. That money will go into play 2 roles. One is to act as a lender of last resort. When people want to remove liquidity and the utilization rate is high, the reserve will actually put the money in, so other people can put the money out. And the second role will be to act as an insurance in case something happen, touching wood here, something wrong happen. We're going to be building an insurance vault in order to take on the first losses of any potential problem that we had. And finally, the other mechanism, in case the guard doesn't have enough money, is because we manage the leverage on all the strategies, we have a deleveraging mechanism on some of the strategies that will allow people to remove their liquidity with no problem. So I think that's a kind of a brief overview, or not that brief overview, of the elements or components of the platform.
Thank you for the detailed explanation, Diego. I'm sure everyone really appreciated that.
I put everyone to sleep.
We're all really excited to test this out. So can you tell us more about launch plans and when this will be available to the public?
Yeah, so smart contract audit done by Hacken, done 9.6 out of 10. That's great. We are gearing to launch first on Arbitrum. Contracts are deployed. Everything is ready. We're just testing and making the last changes on the front end of the app. So I guess it will happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We are also looking at, so we're not going to make a mistake of launching at the same time in all the platforms, but once we are comfortable with Arbitrum, we're going to be deploying very, very quickly to Optimism and Avalanche and Phantom, because everything is also ready there. So yeah.
And can you tell us more about the strategies that are being deployed on Arbitrum, and are they going to be the same strategies across all blockchains?
So we have in terms of categories, we have two broad categories. One is a delta neutral or pseudo delta neutral strategy that gives you yield on US dollars, basically, by tapping into different liquidity pools. The liquidity pools are going to be a stable and volatile asset. It could be ETH, or it could be in Avalanche AVAX, or it could be Arbitrum. It doesn't really matter. It gives you returns in dollars. And then we have directional strategies. Directional strategies, we have 2 types. One is what we call Delta 1 strategies that gives you a 1x direction into assets like ETH or AVAX or Arbitrum while farming on these pools. And then we have the liquid staking delta neutral strategies, which gives you exposure to these volatile assets by investing in, let's say, ETH and STETH, which is the liquid staking derivative of ETH. So you have no impermanent loss, but you have the return in ETH. They're all going to be leveraged. So those are the 3 main strategies that we're going to launch, and each of them will going to have a different combination of portfolios, or the strategies are going to be also individual individual. We're going to be posting them also individually.
That sounds great. And what's the long-term vision for Rumi Finance? Where do you see yourself in a few years from now?
Who knows, man? So what I think is that, so I have two convictions, right? So first of all, I think finance and banking will run on DeFi rails. I think DeFi will be an integral part of the finance world. And the other thing I believe is that banking itself is also going to change the way people do banking, and I think banking in the future will be way more niche in terms of the front end. I think it's going to be based on communities. So I think like kind of banking will be split into two: front end and back end. And on the front end, you're going to have different communities. Let's say, I don't know. I have another business called the Central Pavilion, and we do NFT art exhibitions and stuff. For example, in that use case, I do believe that, for example, there's going to be a banking front end for artists, and it's going to be targeted, and the UX and the experience and the loyalty points on the card and all this stuff is going to be geared towards that type of community. But on the back end, there's going to be different layers. And for example, you're going to have the cards, you're going to have the investment layers. I want Rumi to be that yield layer that will actually power all these future banking communities. So that's how I see us playing along, being in the background, empowering anyone that wants to have a risk-adjusted access to wealth creations. That's what I believe.
Thank you for that. And with the recent banking collapses, we might see that sooner than later.
Yeah, I think it's gonna catch up, and obviously, like DeFi and crypto people are on the advance on these changes. But I do believe like this is gearing towards more niche communities on the front end, but on the back end, the DeFi rails, yeah. So we're just getting started, and in the end, like I didn't mention, but Rumi, we also have we built an app on top of our protocol that is called DeFi Blue. DeFi Blue is targeting institutional investors and institutional funds that they need a kind of a different version of what we do here. So with DeFi Blue, institutions will be able to choose the strategies of the Rumi protocol, create their own vaults. The vaults will be whitelisted, permissionless but whitelisted, so everybody that they want them to access, they will be able to access, and then other people don't. And we kind of offer a more customized reporting service API for them, the ability to obviously customize their vaults and everything that has to do with accounting and account management. So we already signed a couple of funds that are going to be coming in. So we're very excited about that. And in the future, what we want to do is we want to open sources. So basically, right now we are creating the strategies, we are managing the vaults, but in the future we want to decentralize it. So we want other people to be able to create their own strategies, either for themselves or to push it to our community, but always using our tools, always using our backtesting framework, their ability to leverage with us, the automation tools in order to manage the risk management. Like it's very important that whatever we put as a strategy is really well managed and risk managed. So, but in the future, we just want to be contributors, and we're sure that there are other people that are more intelligent and smarter than us that will be able to create strategies. So yeah.
That sounds excellent. And what would the role of the Rumi token be in this whole ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the Rumi token will have a great utility for the platform. Obviously, like, you know, what are the reasons that you need the token? And I believe, like, you know, the most important ones are to bootstrap the platform. Initially, you need to make sure that the two sides of this marketplace, the lending and the strategies, are oiled enough and has enough liquidity to get it started. So that's one of the reasons why we're launching the token. The most important one is that we want to be able to centralize the governance of the protocol, and the Rumi token will be having that role. With the Rumi token, which obviously we're defining tokenomics, but just to give people an idea, like you'll have to do some sort of staking of the Rumi token in order to access to the benefits of the ecosystem, of the rewards, but also on the governance. But the idea is that you will be using the token to vote, to create proposals, and to manage the protocol. We have a very detailed plan that what I call orderly transition into centralization in different phases, where at the beginning it's going to be more centralized, obviously, because we want to make sure that the protocol grows and we don't make the same fuck ups that a lot of people are making in the DAO world, but going towards a decentralized protocol where we're going to be dividing all these components that I mentioned before into sub DAOs that will collaborate with each other and will be fully decentralized. To the moon.
That's wonderful.
To the moon, Lambo.
LFG.
Okay, LFG.
So we have 2 questions that have been dropped in the Discord AMA channel that our community would like to ask you. Again, and for the listeners, I've pinned the Discord link up at in the tweet. So if you guys have any questions, you can drop them in our Discord channel. So will there be a pre-sale, and what will the requirements be for the pre-sale?
There will be a pre-sale. There will be an airdrop. That we let's talk first about the airdrop. So the airdrop will be there will be several airdrops. Number one, and it will be retroactive, and it will be randomly announced, and it will have to do with the real value that people can provide to the platform. And we're going to be giving more information about that. We're going to be doing a pre-sale. So this is my thing, and you're recording this, and maybe I will regret saying this, but we're inclined not to take VC money for this protocol. We want to make a protocol for the community. So we're going to be raising a pre-seed, pre-sale, let's call it, from angels, but also from the community. So I want to give the community the opportunity to become early shareholders of the protocol and actually gain the same potential profits that all these VCs are having with the other protocols. So I want to level the playing field. So there will be a pre-sale. There will be most likely a few phases, 3 phases of the pre-sale. The pre-sale will be done cross-chain. One of the benefits of the tech stack that we're building is that we're going to be building our token on a standard called Layer 0, which allows instant cross-chain messaging. So we're going to be able to do different pre-sales in different chains. So we will do it in Arbitrum first, but then we will be moving in. It's all the same token, but you're going to be able to pay it in different chains, basically. 3 phases. We will be sending more information soon.
And we have another question. I assume this is regarding unlock. So when will the token be released to the public after the pre-sale?
I don't want to give a date because it's not determined yet, but it will be this year, maybe Q4, beginning of Q4 this year, if the market conditions are good. We want to make sure that the protocol is launched, people are using it, the community it's giving us useful feedback, before we before we launch the token, but it will happen most likely Q4.
Thank you.
Cool.
We had another question from a community member regarding will we be looking to list on DEXs, or are we looking to list on centralized exchanges?
No, we have to be listed on DEX in order to provide liquidity to a token initially, because it's going to be part of the tokenomic design. So for sure, DEX, we're going to announce which ones later on. And hopefully at some point we will be listed on CEXes. It's not my priority right now. My priority is DEX, because I want the people buying the token to be the people using the protocol. So yeah, for now our priority is DEXs, create ample liquidity. But if the protocol does well, we want to onboard more people to the protocol. We will be looking at CEXes, at centralized exchanges in due time. And I think that's part of helping us this path, going through this path of decentralization. I think one of the KPIs or metrics that we're looking in order to determine when to move from phase to phase, one is how liquid the token is, and I think listing it on CEXes opens the gate to a lot of new interest and demand on the token. So yeah, it will happen, but later.
No doubt. And one of our community members is asking, what's the expected price of the Rumi token?
I don't have it here, but I can share it. But the price is, so basically I can tell you, like, you have a total token supply. The token supply, it's around 102 million. It's a Fibonacci number. I don't remember it right now, but it's the closest Fibonacci number to 100 million. And the price of the token, it will depend on each phase. So in each phase, phase one will have a valuation and a number of tokens that we will sell, and that will determine a price per token. The second phase will have a higher valuation, so the price per token will go up. So the relevant, I think the relevant question here is not the price of the token. It's what is the valuation and the number of tokens that we're selling. But if you wait a second, I'm going to tell you the price of the tokens, just for the sake of answering to your friend here. Let me see. So assume that the price of the token, the price of a token will go from 10 cents per token to the public sale. We expect to go to maybe 40 cents or 45 cents.
So we won't hold you to that, but thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, but for you to understand, and the number of the total token supply is 102,334,155, which is a Fibonacci number, just in honor of Fibonacci.
We have another question regarding locks on the team's tokens. Will the team have locks on their tokens, or will they be able to dump them?
No, of course. It's a three-year lock with a linear vesting. So actually, I don't remember if it's 4 years or 3 years, but we will disclose that when we launch the tokenomics document, which will be in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, so 3-year vesting. Also, the tokens of the team members, they have a vesting. The investors, they have a vesting. So yeah, nobody's going to dump on anyone.
Seems like you're here for the long run, like all of us.
Yeah, like in terms of tokenomics design, like we don't want this is not an anonymous rug pull type of team. Like, we are serious people. We want to create a long-lasting company. Tokenomics design is very important. Avoiding mercenary capital is important. Rewarding the real value users is important. So yeah.
I think this is the last question we'll be entertaining, as we're almost out of time. Can you explain how the yield farming strategies are optimized?
Sorry?
Can you explain how the yield farming strategies are optimized?
Yeah, so I explained before. So in the case of Uniswap V3, how do we optimize the yield? First of all, our algorithm determines what is the narrower range that we need to choose given a price prediction on the ranges. So the more narrow you go on the range, the more APR you get. Then you lever it. That has to do with not only, what is the income APR as a result, but actually what is the cost of leveraging that. So that's another way that we optimize the strategies, that we determine what is the best leverage that will give us the best return based on the no liquidation threshold that we have, but also the rebalances that we need and the cost of borrowing the two tokens, the stable and the volatile. Then we have the impermanence loss hedging, which is how do we manage the leverage in terms of the combination of debt. So we also optimizing that. And the last one is the fact that we create portfolio vaults. So we can achieve a better risk-adjusted yield. Our quant, it's not me, but it's our quant team did the math on what is the actual best allocation that you should have of each strategy in the strategy vault in order to maximize the yield and also the Sharpe ratio and the other risk metrics. So it's a combination of all the things that I said.
Thank you so much, Diego.
Cool. And Nasib is closing the space. Okay. Thank you guys for everything.
Thank you all for joining, and for everyone watching on YouTube, please drop us a subscribe.
Speak soon, guys. Thank you for participating. I'm excited of building this community. Right now, we are only a few: Prestige, Christian, Blazy, Rexmani, Lucia from our team. But hopefully this will grow. We're gonna also have a referral program for you guys, and finally we're gonna have some sort of ambassadorship program that Nasib is building. So you're gonna be able to earn tokens by helping us. So we'll be in touch soon. Thank you. Bye.
Keep your eye out on the Discord. We'll have announcements posted soon. Thank you all, and drop us a follow.